Good evening and welcome to the April Cabinet meeting. Very, very good to see everybody here. The last Cabinet meeting of the municipal year, I think, just about. We've got one more in May, but for the purposes of this, almost the last one. Apologies for absence. I know Nina has taken a phone call. She'll be with us shortly. And Harinder has sent apologies. Are colleagues happy for me to sign the record of decisions of the 11th of March? Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests? Before anybody indicates, I spoke to Bhupinder Gill earlier this week just to clarify and confirm around the issue of the Shared Prosperity Fund report. It has a long list of organisations which colleagues may be members of. I would say there's a broad dispensation to recognise that not dispensation, there's not a requirement to declare those interests as it's a retrospective report. Mr. Gill, if there's anything else you wish to add, please do feel free. It's just a very long list of organisations.
Just that point that you've corrected, there isn't a dispensation, but at the same time, any interest that members may have will not amount to either a pecuniary interest or another substantial interest. The matter is presenting a reflective view of decisions already taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the decisions we are taking are not impacted by those organisations we are talking about. So that's helpful. Thank you. Are there any other OSIs or DPIs? No, that's great. Let's then move on to the first substantive item then, item 4. Luella, over to you. Temporary Accommodation Acquisition Programme, Delegated Authority for Bulk Purchases. Over to you.
Thank you, Vince. Just a bit of background, the Council's still seeing significant numbers of households approach for housing advice, with over 3,000 approaching between April last year and March this year, and we're still heavily relying on the costly nightly paid accommodation. Prevention and relief of accepted homelessness applications remains high at 63%, but we're still seeing significant numbers who require temporary accommodation. 2 opportunities have presented themselves which will allow the Council to purchase 2 blocks of flats that will have a significant impact on our original target of 150 properties purchased by the end of March 2026. The purchase of these 2 blocks will be undertaken as part of the Temporary Accommodation Acquisition Capital Programme that was agreed in January 2024. The 2 sites will be purchased as turnkey acquisitions, and the Housing Services Development Team have been working with Corporate Property to negotiate the purchase price for both blocks, both which are progressing positively. The housing team have been working hard to deliver against the Temporary Accommodation Acquisition Programme, with 28 properties acquired and a further 39 approved and progressed through the legal process. There is a breakdown in the report of the latest updates. These, added to the 2 sites set out in the exempt appendix, will provide 170 properties with an ongoing pipeline. The capital funding has already been agreed in January 2024, and all purchases referenced are within this capital funding envelope. Completion of both sites is expected by October this year, and this item is asking Cabinet to delegate authority to purchase the bulk properties as outlined in the report to the Director of Place and Chief Operating Officer in consultation with myself for use as temporary accommodation as part of the ongoing process to reduce the costs, as owning our own properties not only reducing the outgoings over time, but also gives the Council an asset which, if used as temporary accommodation, is protected against right to buy. Officers will negotiate hard but fair to get the best possible outcome for taxpayers.
Thank you very much indeed, Luella. I've got Simon and then Teresa. Can I ask colleagues, of course, no one's given indication that they're intending to go into the blue papers, so, and I'm not expecting to either, so just to remind colleagues of that. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thanks very much, Vincent. Thank you very much, Luella and the team, for producing this report. I think this is huge, actually, and I've said this before, I think. It's something we've had in right from the very start of our administration 2 years ago, that we were wanting to do this. We hear on a national level how crucial it is to deal with this issue, and for us to take this on and do this properly in this way is a real step change in how we're going to help those who are most vulnerable in our community in so many ways. So I really support this very strongly and think it's a brilliant piece of work that we're going to do. And just to add in relation to that is about the climate issues and the way we've already been retrofitting our own properties up to date now. And this will be another reflection that the work will be done to deliver on sort of how to make properties really climate friendly in a retrofit way. And I just put the word out there to the private sector landlords. If you want advice on how to do climate retrofitting properly, then we've got a team on board who can help with that. So thanks very much.
Excellent. That sounds almost like a good plug for the upcoming Green Business event that's happening here in Medway. Very proud of that. We wouldn't be so blatant to do such a plug for that and the business event coming up after that as well, the non-green one, although all events are green. But we wouldn't do that at Cabinet. We wouldn't be so brazen. Teresa.
Thank you, Vincent, and thank you, Luella, and all the officer team. I think this is a bold step, but a necessary one. And I'm very pleased that it's happening. There is no reason for temporary accommodation to be of a poor standard, and this gives us the opportunity to control the standard, to be mindful of the support and help that we give people to change their circumstances once they're there. And for the future, in line with what you've just said, Simon, as we bring on more affordable housing and work through the local plan, it may be that we can find an alternative use for these assets. So I'm very happy to give officers delegated authorities, and I look forward to the comfort and security that the people who will be able to be in these homes will be able to have. And I think it's a tribute to everybody to recognise that we're in a very difficult situation with no sign of let up. In fact, more people coming on from all sections of society, all ages. And I think that having this kind of property within our own gift is going to be much better and actually much easier to manage for everybody.
Thank you very much. I can't see any other members, so before I come back to you, Luella, a couple of things from my perspective. Really welcome this, and huge thanks to you personally for your work on this as portfolio holder, but also to, I know you'd be the first to say, the team led by Bex Wilcox and others are doing fantastic work in this area. It is right that the team will negotiate hard but fair. That's what taxpayers would expect. And actually, if you think about it, and Teresa is right, I wish we were in a situation where we didn't need temporary accommodation. I wish it was not needed, certainly not to the scale that we're having to purchase and secure. And we're having to do that at the moment anyway. Hundreds of properties, sometimes sadly outside of area as well in the worst case scenario. So, and this helps dramatically reduce that. So from that perspective, there's two choices, do something or do nothing. This is not a do nothing administration. We're getting on with it. We're trying to shake up the system. And Simon is right. You know, some of those things that those properties we use for temporary accommodation are not acceptable. And we have to try and find our way through to get the market to come up to the standard which is acceptable. And actually, this work will lead dividends. And finally, with my finance portfolio hat on, we know that already, although not to the scale that we're talking about with these bulk properties, we're already seeing savings made from the spending that we've put out already. That's the right thing to do from the service user, but actually for taxpayers as well. This is a big investment, but as the report rightfully says, if we did nothing, we'd spend £200 million and all we'd have is a receipt. Actually, we're going to have properties which I fear we will need TA for a considerable period of time to come. But if we didn't, as Teresa said, that will then be the opportunity to have those conversations. And it's important, and you raised this in your opening remarks, that these will not be available for right to buy. That's really critically important because part of the challenges for councils up and down the country, actually, for the last 40 years, have been right to buys happened, and that's meant the stock that we've got available to us as a local authority has been dramatically reduced, whether that's our stock directly or indeed other elements of the housing market as well. So very, very strong support for this. Huge thanks to you and officers for the work that's ongoing, and I know we'll see more of this as we move forward. Back to you.
Thank you all for your comments. As you rightly say, the more we purchase our own temporary accommodation, the more money we save for the taxpayers of Medway in the long term. The report also does remind us of the advice and analysis provided in January 2024, which is still valid today, and the work in this area is continuing with the purchasing process and also the creation of one Medway lettings to alleviate the pressures. And I want to give my thanks to the officers who've worked hard in this area and do continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luella. Are those recommendations agreed? Thank you. Let's move on to item 5, the second of the trilogy, from Luella, appropriation of 1 to 3 Saxton House. Luella, over to you.
Thank you, Vince. So originally the properties in 1 to 3 Saxton House were considered for purchase for the HRA. The purchase did proceed, but following the review of the accommodation and the full council meeting in January 2023, where it was agreed to proceed with a pilot temporary accommodation acquisition project, it was decided they would move over to temporary accommodation. Now, this resulted in the transfer of Saxton House to the general fund at the start of the pilot project, and the paper is seeking permission just to formalise the transfer. As stated in the report, stamp duty land tax was paid at the point of completion as required for a general fund purchase. So Cabinet is asked to consider the following options. 1, to agree the appropriation of 1 to 3 Saxton House to the general fund, and 2, to not approve the appropriation of Saxton House to the general fund, but this would mean the property would not be accounted for correctly in the annual asset valuations for general fund. So the recommended option is option 1, to approve the appropriation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luella. Any other colleague on this? Zoe?
Yes. Just basically that the transfer of this property needs to be regulated as appropriate so that it can be correctly accounted for in the asset valuation fund. So I would move that we agree the proposal at 6.1.
Thank you very much indeed. I think this is an important, although a technical report, an important report, so we know that we've done all the appropriate things we need to do. So anything else you want to say in conclusion, Luella?
Yeah, just to say the continued use of the property for temporary accommodation is the correct way forward. As we all know, it's much needed to help us address the demands relating to homelessness.
Thank you very much. Are those recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. That moves us on to item number 6, Director Award to deliver the One Public Estate Brownfield Land Release Fund Works. Blimey, that is a long title for a report. The third in your trilogy. Luella, over to you.
Thank you. Not a title I'm going to be trying to repeat. This report is giving us the options available relating to the delivery of £471,625 funding awarded to the Council from the Brownfield Land Release Fund 2. The site was an underused car park owned by Medway Council, which has now been declared surplus. This site fits with the Council's target of regenerating brownfield sites to bring them into a more viable state and provide additional much-needed affordable housing. The funding will help to unlock the site by allowing enabling works to commence that are required before the main construction works. Works were approved by planning in March 2025. The Cabinet is asked to agree a preferred option of a direct award for the project management and to undertake enabling works. It is noted that the recommendation is urgent and should not be subject to a call-in in order for the deadline to be met. The chairperson of the Regeneration, Culture and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee has agreed that the proposals are reasonable and should be treated as a matter of urgency and to waive a call-in. The options proposed are: 1, do nothing. This will result in the loss of the grant funding to deliver the enabling works. 2, extend the current contract. There's no current contract in existing. 3, utilise a framework. The Council only partly operates a framework to meet this need, therefore is not viable. For open market procurement, whilst a viable option of this approach would not meet the funding programme required and would result in a loss of the grant funding. And option 5, a direct award to MDC. Whilst there are alternative project managers and contractors, MDC have been established as a TECL compliant LATCO for the purpose of regeneration projects, who can be directly engaged to deliver these services. The Council has confidence that MDC are able to meet the funding programme.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Nina. I've got Teresa and then Simon.
Yeah, thank you again, Luella. I think this is a really good example of pragmatic expediency, and sometimes we have to make decisions like that. Applying for the grant was a really good thing to do to get the enabling works in place. This was an underutilised car park. It's on a difficult site, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't use it. And for me, it's a very appropriate thing for our own property company to be doing because they understand the area. They can work very directly with the residents all around. There's already been a lot of negotiation and consultation happening as the site was known to be being brought forward. It's fantastic to have 21 affordable homes there. That really is a win for everybody in our community because we need so many more. And I think that it's good to see that our development company is going to be overseeing this project. I don't want anyone to run away with the idea that somehow this is a loss to Chatham. On the contrary, it's a gain for Chatham and the whole of Medway. And it makes sense where we can to do this. And it accords with what some people sometimes say, with, as you have alluded to tonight, our policy of bringing forward as many brownfield sites as possible. And even when there's a sort of topographical difficulty, as there is with this site, there's no doubt about that, there's a preparedness to make sure that the enabling works are done first and that the land just doesn't lie there, turning into a scruffy old sort of neglected site. In fact, this will enhance this part of Medway. So I'm really pleased about it, actually. It's long been a car park that's needed much better utilisation, and here we are on the cusp of making that happen.
Thank you, Teresa. Simon?
Yep, thanks very much, Vincent. Thank you again, Luella, for your report. And I just wanted to raise the point here about the work that was done to develop this, to get this site to where it is. There's been about 2 or 3 different iterations of what it will look like. And the one driving principle was the Chatham Town Centre Design Code, and it's been really well applied here. They've done a brilliant job. The design and the architecture of the site reflects the surrounding area really well. It's not over height, which is a really important point to make there. So, and at the end of the day, as you say, it delivers 21 homes for people on a site that's a very awkward and difficult site to develop, and includes a community garden as well for them. So there's a lot of positives with this site, and it's been brilliant working closely with MDC and our planning team and with the housing team in order to get this to where it is. So it's a really exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Can't see anybody else. So before I come back to you, Luella, I would echo comments from colleagues. I think this is an area I used to represent but don't represent anymore. But actually, I think, as Simon says, the co-production of where we've ended up with this planning application is a really good example of why MDC exists, actually. Having that TECL company is really important so we can get on with this stuff in a way that if we didn't have them, the kind of tendering process could put at risk. You know, an extension of effectively 8 days is probably acceptable. 8 days plus a whole procurement process probably isn't. So actually, this is £500,000 that probably wouldn't be coming to Medway if we didn't have MDC, I suspect. And that's a really positive thing to say. So very, very supportive of this. I think it's important. And of course, this site ties in closely with Mountbatten House, which again, this administration is very clear. We want to see that coming back to life, having sat there dormant for far too long. So very, very supportive of this. And again, thanks to officers across the council working in a one Medway approach to get this delivered. Back to you, Luella.
Thank you everyone for your comments. So option 5 is the recommended option as the procurement process in order to meet the criteria and the timescales to ensure we get the grant funds. It's recommended the contract length be a 12-month term with an option to extend for 6 months by mutual agreement. And finally, I'd like to thank the officers for the work in successfully obtaining the funding, making the application and actually getting it for the enabling works. The full scheme will be 100% affordable housing site, as Simon has mentioned, within the council's own housing revenue account to ensure the homes remain as social housing in perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are the recommendations agreed? Thank you. Let's then move on to agenda item 7, which I'll move in Harinder's absence. Recommendations are laid out in paragraph 1, and that's to approve the programme for 25-26 and also to delegate authority to the Director of Place in consultation with Harinder for the delivery of the projects. I was very lucky to be at the launch of the Year 4 event, and if you go onto the Medway Council website, you can see a video there from that event. Really, really positive. And if you just look at the whole list of just last year's Year 3 programme, you can see there so many things that have made a difference to so many bits of our community. So I want to pay a huge tribute actually to every single organisation who stepped forward. One of the challenges was that there was more project than pounds. That's a good problem to have in one sense, and absolutely one of the messages from the UK SPF team here is that if you put in a bid and was unsuccessful last year, please don't think it's because you weren't at that level. Some of us know quite a lot about putting forward plans which were brilliant, but not quite as brilliant perhaps as other plans. So yeah, huge thanks to all of those, because every single one of those projects has led to positive outcomes for the community of Medway. It's been recognised, as we've mentioned here before and mentioned elsewhere, that our friend and colleague Lauren Edwards has talked about this in an adjournment debate, specifically how this programme is delivered in our community, working with our officers, not in a kind of top-down way, but absolutely bottom-up with collaboration and cooperation. I've saw it again at that event just last week, where organisations were chatting to each other. After the session had finished, there were conversations happening between organisations that perhaps had never met before. So doing all of those wonderful things that you'd expect Team Medway to do. I'd want to pay, I know Harinder would want to do this, but I would want to do it as well. So double the amplification. The small but perfectly formed team that deliver this are some of the very best officers in this area in the country, frankly. And again, I think we're seeing time and again as an exemplar when it comes to the Shared Prosperity Fund. There are other councils who, frankly, keep the money for themselves. There are other councils where the list will be 6, not 60. So the fact that we've managed to get all of this out the door is really positive. There are 2 slight challenges this year. Challenge number 1 is the quantum of cash overall is less, and challenge number 2 is part of that is around the multiply scheme, which is a brilliant scheme, but again that's got less money than it had before, and I know again the team there do a fantastic job and will continue to do so. For those organisations or individuals who are thinking about putting in a bid for Year 4, do reach out to the team. They're having one-to-one sessions, both in person and online. And a really positive thing that's come forward, this is the first time this has happened in the 4 years, there was a specific recognition around how a number of these are used for summer events, but actually the timetable and process can make delivering an event in June or July or August quite tight. So again, the team using their initiative and great suggestion, there's a small pot specifically set aside for summer events. The deadline for that application is the 21st of April, so don't hang around. But I think that will again make sure that the community is leading in its ability to come together and do those things which we value so very much here in Medway. Alongside the 2 existing programmes, the Pride in Place, which is majority of the funding, but also the ability to have a look, have a test, do that feasibility work, which in many, many cases has led to further bids, whether that's through UK SPF or indeed perhaps to the Heritage Place funding, which again is something else which Medway has been recognised for accordingly. So I'm really pleased to highlight this, really pleased to recognise the work that's going on here. Would encourage all of those watching on YouTube to think about putting in an application. If there's an idea that you thought Medway would be better if we did this, have a look at the feasibility pot. Have that conversation with the UK SPF team here in Medway. I'll pause at that point. I know some contributions will come from colleagues. So Nina first, please.
Thank you for this brilliant report, and what an achievement it is. It's really, really heartwarming to read this amazing achievement that has been delivered actually for parts of Medway. It has been delivered across Medway, and I just wanted to highlight the 39 projects that actually promoted Pride in Place in Medway, and the vast array of projects as well, and the scale also differing in sizes, reaching out to marginalized groups and supporting and enhancing local community infrastructures and groups. And also I wanted to emphasize and thank the team for also prioritizing the creative sectors. And I remember Councillor Price and myself also promoting heritage to some of our youngest residents here in Medway, inviting them to Rochester Castle as part of the Heritage Appreciation Day. And they had such an amazing time. And the next stop for them was Guildhall Museum. So that was also funded by SPF. And, I would like to encourage everybody in Medway to also look through the history of LV21. It is an amazing ship that has also got a connection, a huge connection to Medway's art scene, and LV21 is back home. And that is such an amazing thing also. And I have also seen the other projects that have been listed, so many arts, creative, culture, and community enhancing sort of projects that have been supported. And I also would like to thank the team for involving the culture team as well as the heritage team as part of the selections and prioritizing processes. So I think because they have involved more than one team as part of the decision making, it goes to show how wide-ranging the projects have been and how many lives they have touched really, and making a real positive difference, strengthening the community spirit as well as Pride in Place. So thank you to everyone who have been involved, and also to the SPF. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. I've got Teresa, Simon, Alex, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it is important for me to add my thanks to Ryan Jagpal and the team particularly. I've had some direct involvement with them alongside Councillor Clark and Councillor Peake, and very helpful and very accessible they were. And that's how everybody involved with SPF has found them. And one of the standout things about this, apart from the fact that it absolutely accords with our One Medway plan, and as you've said, Nina, highlights the kind of diversity that we've got, and for the successful projects, a commitment to making sure that these, where we've had applications from every part of Medway is represented. I wasn't at this year's event. The really good thing that has been for me is when I've been to other events and other visits, people have talked about their experience with SPF, talked about their willingness to come forward and apply again. And if they were unsuccessful, without rancour, actually saying they've understood why their project wasn't successful, they're not turned away from having another go, and there's huge camaraderie and collegiate advice and support going on amongst all of the people that have applied and have been successful. So I think this is something that has engendered a real sense of community and a sense of kind of sharing leadership, sharing ideas, being supportive of one another through a process that we could have taken, as you said, Vince, the easy way out. But I think Harinder has been very determined within his portfolio to make sure that this relatively small amount of money went as far as possible, and the evidence of all of these projects and the legacy of them and the things that people have planned as a result of them really demonstrates that he's been successful in his ambition for that together, as I say, with the team. So I hope, as you've said, that people watching, people listening will come forward if they haven't already, and that they'll continue to make the best of each other's experiences, advice and support as we go forward with some of these really exciting things.
Thank you very much. Teresa, Simon?
Yeah, thank you very much. And a huge thanks to Harinder and the whole team. Again, I'm just sort of reiterating a little bit what Teresa's just been saying, and Nina, about this. I mean, I don't think it's possible for us not to declare an interest here, because I think all these projects, we've got a lot of interest. Two that stand out for me, particularly obviously Luton Lights, is a really important one for my colleague Joe and myself. And we just at an event in Luton last Saturday, a volunteer event, and people were talking about how the community feels very strong there now. And this is why. These sorts of things, this is why our communities are building strength and enthusiasm and confidence as well, I think, comes through strongly as this carries on. It's just a great list to see. The other one is the urban greening project along Intra, which is now actually happening. I was talking to them volunteers there last week, and they're very excited about what's happening there. So this is a couple from my own personal engagement with this, but we have to understand this affects thousands of people across our community. It builds that confidence, it builds that sense of one Medway that we're striving for and achieving now. It's starting to really bear fruit. The number of groups, the number of organisations, there is a reflection of how the one Medway is working. So it's great to see. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Alex?
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, I just want to pay tribute to the way this has happened under this administration. I think it is important to recognise how differently, as you said, Vince, how differently other councils have done it. And, you know, well, we're into the sort of realms of speculation. I think the track record of the previous administration in so many areas suggests that they would have taken a quite different approach to the way this Labour and Cooperative administration have dispensed these funds, the things that have been prioritised. But I think critically what it comes down to is the fact that when we won control of the council back in May 2023, we won power not for ourselves, not for our party, but for our communities. And that has been demonstrated time and time and again with the projects which we see, the 55 projects listed in the report, which, you know, at the top of page 43, it talks about the recommendations for the way this should be done to empower local leaders and communities, especially in those places lacking local agency. I don't think that's ever what Medway has lacked. I don't think there's a lack of local agency. There's an incredible capacity to deliver all sorts of things which the council could do, but actually they're better done by communities in partnership with the council, whether that's things like Medway Pride or some of these specific projects. These are things that have grown up in a sort of grassroots way and are all the better for it. Not the sort of staid, prescriptive, you know, bread and circuses that we used to get from the previous Conservative administration, you know, dictated by the very narrow reactionary tastes of a few individuals at the top. You look at that list and it is a reflection of the diversity of Medway, the strength of Medway in its diversity. That's not what, you know, certain people would say is woke. That's fundamentally what we should be doing, because our tastes are neither here nor there in all of this. But you never got that impression with the previous administration. You felt there was a prescription of the sort of entertainment you should enjoy, the sort of projects that were considered worthy. And actually you look at the diversity in that list, and it's projects that not only, you know, are not even, some of them not to my taste, but, you know, I could never have conceived of some of these projects. They are a reflection of the creativity and the imagination of the brilliant people of Medway. And I would in particular also refer to the urban greening project, which again, although we haven't had to declare an interest, I will declare an interest as a trustee of Intra-Community Trust, which is instrumental in delivering that. And it's a project which takes place right on the perimeter of my ward. I mean, perhaps it should have a sign saying you're now leaving Rochester West and Bostow, but just on the high street at the railway bridge. Fantastic. And it's the fact that, again, it's the joined up thinking. It's a great project, but it's just coming together at a time when, as I was able to do on Saturday, having had spent the afternoon on Chatham High Street, I was able to walk back and then cut down at Doust Way and use the recently opened pedestrian footpath, the riverside footpath. So that, you know, that has now linked up parts of our community. So it's nice that that's nothing to do with the Shared Prosperity Fund, but the fact is, because we're asking people what they want to do, we're doing things in places that are important to them, and that's why it will then have that inherent logic, because do you know what? People know their areas better than politicians or council officers necessarily. But that's not to say that, you know, the work that the council officers have done in terms of facilitating this has been absolutely fantastic, but it's what councils should be all about. It's what labour and cooperative councils should be all about winning power for our communities. And I'm really delighted that, you know, I recognise there's a smaller quantum of cash this time round, but I do know that the precedent that has been set for the way this has been delivered over the past few years means that that money will be incredibly well spent. And we're all used to spending small sums of money in our communities through ward improvement funds, and we know the difference that £100 here or £250 there can make to facilitate really worthwhile projects. Even with that smaller quantum of cash, we have a slightly bigger pot than that to dispense, and the difference that these projects will make to our communities is really, you know, transformational. And let's not forget, it could have gone so much differently if we had different people in charge. We should be proud of this as a cabinet, but the people of Medway should be prouder of what they have been empowered to deliver by that decision.
Thank you very much, Alex. I agree with every word. Adam, please.
Thank you, Vince. And yes, it's I well recall the events that Councillor Gorham and I were pleased to go along to. This was an opportunity that was given to primary school children from Grain, so right out in the far-flung rural area of the Black Peninsula, some of whom had never before had the opportunity to climb up Rochester Castle and then go into the Guildhall as well. It was a really pleasing event, and I'd like to thank everybody involved with that aspect of it, and as indeed all the other aspects of this fund, which is in part joining up our heritage with all the parts that previously funding hasn't been able to get to. But it's not just funding in itself, it's actually for people, and it's celebrating our heritage and our history, and long may it continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all colleagues. I think I agree with everything that everybody just said, actually. Blimey, the impact of this, you know, you could take any one of those single projects and spend the next half an hour talking about how wonderful it was. And Adam, you're right to highlight that actually this has had a spread across all 5 towns and the peninsula. And it's important to recognise that. This administration cares about each one of those 285,000 residents from High Halstow to Hoo, from Rainham to Rochester, and all other parts in between. Worth saying, I think the final thing I would say before we move to the recommendations, we don't know what will happen with Year 5. The Year 4 happened, and again, as Alex, you rightfully say, you know, these are political choices. We know the government's got some tough choices to make, but despite those tough choices, this has remained. We've got a current working assumption that a number, because we've got a multi-year settlement coming, we are anticipating that a number of existing grant streams will probably be rolled in to the general local government multi-year settlement. I think the one thing I would say, and there'll be some difficult political choices when we've got that flexibility and freedom. I think the two that I would say, from my perspective as portfolio lead for finance, I would anticipate that you can absolutely have a working assumption they will remain, are UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Multiply, and the Household Support Fund. Those two things, whether they've got specified ring-fenced budgets or not, this administration, whilst there is still a need, those things will continue. And we will work out how we'll do that. Obviously, we'll know more when we get the budgets through. And we're already, for the avoidance of doubt, I checked my diary, the meetings are coming. We are already, as an administration, talking about next year's budget. So that's not just talk for the sake of it. We'll be building those assumptions in as we start to work our way towards February next year. But can I thank all colleagues, and actually I know councillors across the political spectrum recognise the importance of this particular fund and the great work it's done across the community. Are colleagues happy, therefore, to agree the recommendations? Are they agreed? Thank you. Then let's move on to agenda item 8. This and the next one both fall to me. This one is fairly straightforward. This is on the procurement strategy 21 to 25. The recommendations are laid out as in paragraph 1. And don't forget as well, there's the additional supplementary agenda item on the paper as well, which is the feedback from scrutiny. And again, thanks to scrutiny committee members for their assistance with that. That's important. This is recognising two things, that we are effectively at the end of our current strategy, and that the new strategy that we'll be working towards will absolutely be taking objectives from the national procurement strategy. Again, this is somewhere where there is a level of national guidance, which of course you would expect a unitary authority like ours to recognise. And as we go through that work, again, of course, that will go through various consultations. One of the things I know Cabinet members, and Simon, you may wish to comment on this, obviously one of the things which, whatever the national procurement strategy says, this administration will be putting sustainability, as it has done, it will continue to do that. So again, just to make that point very, very clear and explicit as we move forward. I'll move the recommendations as laid out, and I'm happy to throw it open to colleagues for any questions. Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vince, and thanks to the officers for this report. I mean, obviously, it's moving onwards now. So I just wanted to draw colleagues' attention to it. It's page 75 under the Objective 33, where it talks about, most notably, the progress made towards carbon reduction and usage of local supply chains. That kind of sustainability approach will hopefully, as we move on to the new strategy, will be reflected much more strongly. It's there now, it's writ large there, along with all the important social value aspects of this strategy, but the way that we approach our carbon reduction and the climate issues that we have to face, it has to be part of our procurement going forward, and it will be. So that's good to see. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Simon, Teresa?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it is important to acknowledge, Simon, particularly what you said about sustainability, but also that the teams behind what is a complex piece of work are kind of unsung heroes, actually, because they are looking after value for money for taxpayers, value for money for the council, and doing that in a way that is fair to the people who come forward to procure, who want us to procure their services. And the emphasis on social value, the emphasis on fairness, the emphasis on accessibility in the new strategy is really important. And some of the more modern, approachable, accessible ideas that have been tried, like pre-procurement discussions that involve lots of people, the ability for suppliers to collaborate if they want to and put in joint bids, is really important. All of that has got to be tied down to be properly auditable, to protect GDPR, to do all of those complex things. But this strategy shows that it is possible to take into account the needs of our suppliers, as well as making sure that we've got a legally compliant and safe and secure procurement strategy. And I look forward to, as someone who is looking after a division where there's a huge amount of procurement for very large sums of money, I feel comforted by the fact that we've got a new strategy that allows people to come forward, take part in service delivery in a way that they know will make their contracts secure, which is important to them, and in a way that puts fairness and social value at the heart of the process.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and to Simon as well. I can't see anybody else, so again, thanks for those comments. I say from my perspective, obviously we inherited this strategy. There's lots that's good with it, so it's not, you know, not like we're starting from a blank piece of paper, but we have got those new national guidelines. But of course, we will take those into account, not least, as Teresa said, recognising all the things that sit within the One Medway Council plan. They, you know, this is effectively how we do the shopping for the One Medway Council plan. So we will definitely be doing that. And again, obviously, it will be reported back to this Cabinet in due course. Are the recommendations agreed? Thank you. Let's then move on to the last item of this evening, which is Treasury Management Quarter 3. This was considered by audit on the 20th of March. Recommendations as laid out in paragraph 1. My thanks to the audit committee. You can see quite a number of questions. I think a couple of things I would raise. Certainly the, as laid out in paragraph 11.6, I do have that, you know, and our friend and now the MP for Chatham and Aylesford, of course, he was always very, very vociferous in asking questions, both in opposition and as part of this cabinet. That is a product which, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We are left with it now. We're, of course, waiting to see if there's any movement on that. I think the worldwide global economic situation we find ourselves in may make quarter 4's reading much more challenging. I'd absolutely recognise that the work that's done by our in-house team, again, one of the decisions of the previous administration I supported was bringing this team in-house. They've continued to deliver well. But actually, you can see there on 11.10, the question that was asked by audit around Treasury investment, that actually some of those other investments were dealing with the loss that we've talked about here before on the Lothbury Fund. So happy to move that as laid out. And again, thanks to colleagues in the Treasury management team for the work they do on a regular basis. I can't see any indication, so I'm happy to move the recommendations as laid out. Are those agreed? Thank you very much. That closes tonight's meeting. Thank you, everybody.